Welcome to No Instructions. I'm Bob.
And I'm Josh.
What's up?
Hey, man.
You may notice something that I don't have a set in front of me.
I have noticed. I figured you were doing that for some kind of showmanship, so I wasn't going to ask about it.
I am. I got a new set.
Mm-hmm.
Secret set. Mm-hmm. And I got you one too.
Oh, I think I know what it is. Is it? Oh, it does a heavy box.
It is a heavy box.
Is it? Does it get lighter because of? Well, you dropped stuff. You dropped it. How do you have a penny in your pocket?
I don't know. It was in my knife, maybe.
It's probably the best place for a penny. Not in currency.
Oh.
Ooh, what's that? Oh man,
Oh,
stuff is falling out everywhere.
Look what we got.
Oh, we got people in the video know what we have. Man.
We can blur that address out in case that was visible.
There you go. Check it out. I can move my own camera now.
Is that on mine?
What?
Is that on mine?
Yeah, this is yours, Anthony. The little tiny
We got the Lego Ideas International Space Station sets.
space station.
Anthony, how do you make my camera go? Because I want to. We got a whole different set. We got a lot of stuff to talk about.
Yeah,
Whoa.
we do. You may notice if you're watching the video. Actually, if you're listening, you may notice the difference. I'm just kidding. You won't notice the difference.
Wonder if you can.
We have a whole studio set up now.
So studio-y.
It is studio-y. We have a new table that you may see if you're looking at the video. If you're not looking at the video,
Go look at the video. What are you doing?
It's
You're
on
not
YouTube.
busy. Go look at the video.
We have a YouTube channel just for No Instructions. Just search it up. You will find it. And you can watch us build stuff and see how ugly we are and all that stuff. But right now, you may notice that we are at a new table that we just made for this, partially for this show. For other reasons as well that we're not going to get into yet. But we've rearranged this entire space. So now we have a dedicated podcasting table and place and lights and
Here,
microphone.
check it out. Yeah, I'm gonna do you a little tour with the camera that we have. The cameras used to be on stands, but now we have our own, and I'll do a 360 panorama. There's Anthony, there's stuff, and check out what we have back here.
Oh, look at that. A case with most of the sets that we've done. Not
That's
all
the
of them,
geekiest, and it makes me happy, like display case. We could just have like a whole room full of those.
Oh, man.
Man, and charge entrance just like they do at Rancho Obi-Wan.
I don't think we're that interesting, but yes. Anyway, it's changed a lot here. It probably won't sound any different. I hope. That'd be weird.
I'm sitting up a little taller because we have chairs now.
Yeah, we have real chairs that are off the ground. Like my feet don't touch the ground. We have a tall table. So,
Moving on up.
And now we have to figure out how to deal with all these.
It's gonna get crinkly.
Yeah. Okay. So I'm just taking out bag one.
I'm doing 1 and 2, and I'll put the rest away.
Oh boy, hold on.
Now, somebody asked about this set specifically. If you get to assemble it like it was assembled in space, that would be pretty awesome.
Huh. I wonder if that's the case. I kind of guess no.
Well, if we did, you could take a picture of the part that your good friend, Mr. Astronaut Pettit, put together.
Yeah. I don't know. Good friend.
Your mega super BFF acquaintance. Beth acquaintance.
Did we talk about? I know we talked about people who were famous or known last week. We didn't talk about him, did we?
No.
Oh. Yeah. I met an astronaut one time. No big deal.
I met an astronaut before too, but I was like 6, and he came to our school and signed a little piece of paper. So, did you have a signed piece of paper?
I did not get a signed piece of paper, but I did talk at length about super cool stuff. He is a fascinating. Don Pettit is the person I'm talking about. In case you didn't get that. Super fascinating person, and very, very kind. And
I think we talked about before, the one space shuttle launch that I got to watch was his space shuttle launch.
oh, I'd forgotten about that.
Yeah.
But yeah. So the first bag is actually 2 little tiny satellites and a shuttle. Ooh, and it's got microfigs.
Oh yeah, because the astronauts are.
Those are.
I don't know if
cool.
they're properly to scale, but they're tiny.
All right, look at these. These are. Can that focus on that? Probably not. They are
Look.
so small.
This has like the 10 years of Lego Ideas sets inside here. This is fascinating.
Oh wow.
I love the Lego Ideas sets.
Yeah, they are some of the best.
That
sets,
one?
for sure.
That one.
I got that,
That
one
one?
and that one. So we, on top of the shifting around of the studio, making it into an actual studio that we've done, we've been doing other things and so we can totally talk about that. Anything else going on personally with you? Anything new? Anything?
No, we've been gone. I don't know what's happening with my actual life.
I actually don't remember the last time we recorded, and so I don't even know when it was in context of where we've been and all that stuff.
What did we talk about? I remember you told me you didn't love me.
Oh, that's right.
That was the only thing I remember from that last episode.
Really
I didn't know that I could hurt so much. Didn't know. And now I do. All
right, everybody. We'll see you next time.
I appreciate that they're talking to everybody in their own language in these Lego Ideas manuals.
Yeah.
It's like the first quarter of this book.
Yeah.
It's a lot.
It is a little bit much.
We're making a space shuttle.
Yeah. That's what I just said.
I didn't hear you.
The first bag.
I was reading the Spanish version and then the French version.
I see. The what? Do I have? Oh, I don't know. I'm confused. Yeah. So we don't know what's been going on with us personally because we haven't been here, and that's because we went to Chicago. We went up a few days ago. Spent basically, I don't know, half a day and then a full day, and then left the next morning. But it was a 5.5 hour drive or so spent a lot of time in the car. But we went up there because I worked on something, made a modification to an instrument for Rob Scallon.
Who's Rob Scallon, Bob?
Well, let me tell you. He's the guy that I made the shovel guitar for years ago, and he's a really, really talented musician. Does YouTube stuff and just makes awesome videos and awesome music. And if you don't know who he is, you should go figure out who he is. Cause
absolutely go look it up.
Super cool. So we took that thing that I made for him up to him and spent the day shooting with him and his crew. And we were in a music studio, and he got to figure this new instrument thing out. And that was super fun to watch.
Oh, yeah.
Him, who's incredibly talented, get this thing that it was a guitar, but it had a modification that makes it different to play, and to watch him try to figure that out and write a song with it, just like right off the bat, was pretty awesome.
Yeah, that was incredible to watch. Like as a fly on the wall. It's a guitar. I mean, that's what he does. He is a guitarist. He's a musician. Not only does he play guitar, he plays a whole bunch of instruments, but his main bag is playing a guitar. So we made a thing that alters a guitar in a way that he had never played before. Yeah. And so to watch him, like you could... Destin's video about like your brain plasticity and doing something that you know how to do and then having to untrain it. Mm-hmm. Like we got to watch that play out musically.
I didn't think about it.
That was
you're right.
Super awesome because he was like, I'm breaking my brain right now because every other guitar doesn't do the thing that we made it do. And so he was like, oh, right here, I would normally not do this, or I'd have to do it like that. And you could just watch him like smile and then like play around with it. And then for like a minute straight, bust out a beautiful song. And then he'd mess up one little part and go, oh, and then go back to like tinkering and playing with it. And you'd see this like building up of confidence. It's like, okay, I'm getting it. And then make us, like we, the people that just passively listened, like a beautiful little song.
Yeah.
Made from nothing with an instrument that has been played by like a handful of people.
Yeah.
That was amazing to watch.
It was really cool. And he was having a blast with it, which made it even better. It wasn't, a frustrating thing. Like when he messed up, he wasn't frustrated because of it. He was like, it was part of that figuring it out, like the testing how it reacted to him. And it was really cool. So we watched him kind of figure it out for a while. I answered a bunch of questions about it that he had and tried to explain some of the what was happening so that he could learn to work around it. And I'm just being really cryptic because I want you to watch the video in a few weeks when it comes out. But it was fun, and he was writing a song as he was figuring it out. Figured out a couple of really cool things, and then at the very end of the day, he had this drummer come in who I had never heard of, but good grief.
She was amazing.
She was incredible. That was so cool. Because she just like walked in, she was like, all right, what are we doing? And he kind of told her a couple of things, and she just sat down and knocked it out.
Yep.
It was
she
amazing.
Was, I guess, the guest drummer or a replacement drummer on the Seth Meyers show recently.
Yeah, which is pretty wild.
Yeah.
But I can totally see why, because she's incredibly talented. What was her name? Jessica Bard or Bowd or something like that?
Hold on, I just followed.
We'll put it like in the show notes and stuff. Because she's really, really talented and really kind. She was really nice. So he put me on bass, and that was pretty uncomfortable.
Why?
For me. But I knew it was happening, so I mean, we talked about it ahead of time, and so I prepared a very little bit, but also I was just trying to keep up in the most basic way possible, and I think it worked out all right.
I think you did a great job.
No, thanks. It was fun, but I definitely felt like the 5-year-old in the room of adults who everybody knew what they were doing except for me, and I was just like, I got a guitar.
You got to fake it till you make it.
Exactly, which is the way I feel about myself as a guitar player anyway. So being in that position to where like it's really obvious where I am musically, talent-wise on a guitar to the other people in the room, but it was fine. It was good. That was an interesting thing. I don't know. We were recorded for, what was it? I kind of lost track of time. I didn't really know where we were time-wise because we were in there for such a long time. But I don't think we really recorded for until the last 30 minutes or so.
It's probably a little bit longer than that because you guys practiced some without the cameras, and Anthony went out, and Anthony's been recording stuff for a new Between the Build series that we're doing about this trip because we had a lot of amazing behind-the-scenes stuff. So we did our intro, outro, our normal stuff for our videos, and then we just had the cameras rolling along with Rob's cameraman and kind of manager, Jake. He had a bunch of cameras recording, so it was all over the place. So everything was captured in some version or another. And then it was recorded on the actual recording studio booth. So I was hanging out in the booth with Rob because you play in the bass
different Rob.
Different Rob. You were plugged into the system. He was plugged in, and then Jessica was out there just smashing on the drums. So you couldn't hear anything. So I wanted to go into the recording booth and actually hear it. And watching that whole process, I've never been in a recording studio. I know you have, and Anthony has, but as a musician, I've never been in a studio. I've never been cool enough to do that. That process was awesome. It's exactly like you see in movies and documentaries. He had this massive, his was digital, just set up with all the sliders. And you know how the button, you can't, the people in the studio can't hear you. I was like, I want to push the button. So I got to push the button. I was just cracking wise at you guys, and apparently you couldn't hear me.
Nope.
But it was super fascinating to watch that process watch people with, and I know you're not going to take this compliment very well, but watching people with real talent make art in their medium. And I think that is super fascinating. That's why I like watching cooking videos. I like going to plays and things, just seeing people do what they're really passionate about and what just naturally flows out of them in a non-biological kind of gross way. It's really cool.
Yeah, I agree. I mean, watching musicians perform is one of my favorite things. I mean, the right people. Some people make it super boring and uninteresting, but you can tell when somebody has a physical, emotional, full reaction to music. It affects people differently. Mm-hmm. And you can tell when it affects people in a certain way, and it is so much fun to watch. And I think, I was talking about my kind of discomfort with it. I think given a little more time and, hearing something and then going into the other room with the guitar for just a couple of minutes would let me... Part of music is screwing up. It's really 90% of it is screwing up until you get the final thing. Especially songwriting. It's all wrong until it's right, and then you have it. And so I think part of my just about the whole thing was not having a place to go screw up in private and, figure out the thing and goof around until I know that it's not terrible and then come back. It was just right there. And anytime I've ever been in a studio, it's been recording songs that I was a pretty major part of the writing process, and I'd performed on stage a whole bunch of times. So they were songs that I already had figured out, and it was just a matter of doing them as perfectly as you can in that setting, because there is a different pressure to recording something that you've played live. But this was entirely different for me because it was just I don't know, try to keep up. I'm just gonna be up here being amazing on the guitar. Here's a couple notes for you. Just try to keep up.
And that's what I was asking Jake and asking other Rob. And I was like, is his intent to get a song out of this? Because Rob Scallon notoriously does the thing where he like writes a song in a day or does an entire album in a day, like really impromptu, just like letting all the creativity kind of flow.
Yeah.
And I'm like, is this one of those things, or is he just like, are they just jamming to test out this guitar and like to make up something for the future? And they're like, we have no idea. That kind of happens with him. And talking to Jake, Jake is like, I kind of have to wrangle Rob because he gets so excited and kind of gets in the moment. And one thing I was not used to, he was like, because we have to be done at 7. And I'm like, oh, you guys got somewhere to be? He's like, no, that's how long we have the studio.
Yeah.
I'm like, oh, yeah, you have to rent that time. Mm-hmm. He's like, we just, I mean, and a lot of people we know just have shops that are usually theirs. There's no time limit, like a contractual time limit on your ability to create something. And he says that Rob just kind of goes and he gets in a flow, and Jake asks like, hey, you've got like 5 minutes left. We've got to do the intro. We've got to do all these things for the YouTubiness of what he's doing. And he says that's one of the harder parts of doing, or not really like working with Rob, but like working with musicians that are doing their stuff on YouTube. Is like we
if
focus
they don't
on
have their own studio,
yeah,
which is pretty common.
Because we try to focus on the story. Like we have to get all of the parts of the story, because at the end of the day, if there is no real story, then it's just like a hodgepodge collection of stuff that doesn't really, people can't follow.
Yeah. And
so with him, he's actively he's there by himself playing a guitar. And I remember a lot of times he was like, I know this doesn't make for good video, because he was just in his head trying to figure out how to play this thing. And then having to shoot intro, outro, thumbnails, all of that stuff. I guess the administrative type duties.
Yeah.
Like they have to rush in and do it like the last minute before. Not that other Rob would shut the doors on him, but you know, he needs to get, they don't want to have to pay more studio time.
Right. Yeah. And I mean, there's other people, like even the drummer, like anybody that you bring into the studio, you're paying for their time. Especially working musicians, like it matters to them where they are and how much they're getting paid for the time that they're putting in, whether they're friends or not, which totally makes sense. So it was really cool. I would love to go back and do something like that again with a little more preparation. And, you know, I mean, we had a good time with Rob after the fact and came up with some other ideas that we'll do in the future. So I think that something to that effect will probably happen again one of these days. But
well, my biggest question for you is, how did this affect your desire to play music here coming back? Did it kickstart? Did it affect it at all?
Well, I mean, yeah, it probably just gave me, I don't know that it actually did anything other than forced me to physically hold an instrument again, which I haven't in a long time. And just that comfort and that familiarity of just playing a little bit was like, oh man, yeah, I should really do that more often. I mean, I did think on the way back, like, I have multiple guitars. I should take one of them up to my bedroom. They've always been down here. They've always been in this space trying to keep all the stuff collected, but I should just take one and put it by my bed. My kids are old enough to know not to touch it. And like, I can just, like, you know, without permission, and I can just play, like, piddle on it. I don't have to try to play. I don't have to try to write. Just hold it and be familiar with it again. Because that's one of my big things about playing music is I don't want to play with anyone unless I feel that I'm practiced, at least to a base degree. And I don't practice because I don't hold the thing. I don't touch the guitar. I play keys every once in a while because it's up in our living space, and I can sit down, play for 5 minutes before dinner, and then like I'm good, you know. But it's something. And so I think, if anything, just the handling it again made me think, like, I should just take one upstairs so that I can handle it and I can just get more comfortable with goofing around. And a couple of weeks ago or months ago or something, I was looking for guitar lessons. Have we already talked about this?
No.
I was looking for a way to learn guitar because I've been playing guitar since I was in high school, which was a very, very long time ago. Mm-hmm. And when somebody asks me if I play an instrument, my first answer is always keys, because I learned from a teacher.
Keys meaning like piano.
Piano, yeah.
Got it.
I learned how to play that from a teacher and learned music theory, which transcends all the instruments. Yep. But I learned it in that context on a piano, which I think personally is the best way to learn an instrument to start, because everything else flows from that. But I learned that. And so if somebody asked me what instrument I play, that's what I would say. Because guitar was like, well, everybody's in bands. I'm in high school. rock music's cool. I should probably learn how to play guitar. So I picked up a guitar and played it, but didn't learn how to play it. And so I don't have and a lot of people do that, and
That's what I did.
it's totally, yeah, I mean, a lot of people do that. It's totally fine. But when it comes to my relationship to a guitar versus my relationship to a piano, they are entirely different. And so I have this kind of lack of confidence on guitar. I mean, this is not a brag. This is for context. I've played since I was in high school. I've been in 6 bands. I've written 50 or 60 songs. I've recorded 7 or 8 albums. You know, I mean, it's like I've played a lot of guitar, but I am so unconfident and I feel like such a poser when I hold a guitar. And I've actually had friends of mine that I've played with in the past like make comments about like, oh man, we need some of whatever Bob does on guitar because it's always cool. And that feels so nice, but I'm like, man, I am not that. I am faking it the entire time. Like, I don't know what I'm doing. I can't, you know. And I think
So what do you mean you don't know what you're doing?
Because like
Because a G chord is a G chord, whether...
Right. I have a very limited understanding of how things relate on a guitar. A piano is very linear. It's a big, long lines of repeating patterns.
Right.
A guitar is the same way, but they're not linear. I mean,
No.
it's multiple lines, and they line up. But so when it comes to... like, I even understand the music theory of it.
The root, third, fifth.
But applying the theory to the instrument, that's where it breaks down for me, because I've never had to do that. And so, like, when I look at a guitar, I know from history where certain individual notes are, and from those notes I can figure out chords. But then the other 90% of the frets, I would have to find a known position and count back to figure out what it is. And
I think that's pretty common.
That is very common. But piano, so this is my kind of duality of experience. The guitar feels like that to me. Like, I know the most basic parts, and I have to count my way into where everything else is, and that makes the creative part of it pretty hard. Whereas piano, I can sit down, I know where everything is, I know how to build all the chords, I don't have to think about it, I know keys easily, and it just works better for me. And so anyway, all that to say, a few weeks ago, I started looking at how would somebody at this day and age learn how to play guitar remotely? What's the online resource or the mobile resource or something that would take someone with zero experience and get them to where they understood the entire guitar, not just bar chords, not just the E string, the whole thing.
Yep.
And so I started doing some research, asking people, and I found a couple of apps. Fender has one that looks pretty promising, has a bunch of free lessons, and then you can pay for certain types of education on it. I think I'm going to start there, but I really do want to start learning how to play guitar as a complete novice to fill in those gaps, because I think that's one of the biggest hurdles from me making music is just my kind of insecurity around executing. Like, I can fiddle with it, and I can come up with cool stuff that sounds nice, and I can add tons of effects, and I can write songs. But if you ask me, what's the root of the thing that you wrote, and how does it connect to the bridge of the thing? And I'm just like, I don't know. It sounded cool. I don't know.
Yep.
But with piano, it's not like that. And that's the thing that's frustrating for me. So you didn't ask for all that. But that's what I've been thinking about music lately.
Well, that's good.
Yeah.
Because
I would like to
I
play.
just didn't know why, because I want to play. And I know that there's a lot of stuff here. And I know that you like music, I like music, Anthony there likes music. And with our powers combined, theoretically, we could be a band.
I have to say, though, and this has nothing to do with the two of you, it has to do with me, I am super hesitant to play music with other people because I'm so possessive about the things that I've written in the past. I'm so possessive about how it sounds and how it comes out. And in the bands that I've been in, which are, collaboration, obviously, it doesn't always end up like I wanted it to end up. And that was pretty frustrating for me at some point. So I've been super resistant to joining other bands or finding other people to play with, just out of like, I don't know. I guess it's
They're not gonna do. I say that anybody.
Yeah.
Would just do it the way you want them to.
Yeah, I think so. I mean, I think
that is well, I shared that. So when we moved to Alabama, I started leading the church band. And it was the first time I was like the actual leader of the band. And I remember practice for me was so difficult because I wanted people to play it the way I wanted them to play it.
Right.
I wanted people to quit wasting time. I wanted to do it correctly. And then once we did it correctly, if you want to add in a little splash of flavor, then hooray. But like, let's quit wasting time and let's do this so that we can get it right and so that we can be happy with the thing that we put out to people. And I remember I got some people were upset with me because of the way that I ran that band. And I'm like, and I understand that. Like, because this is supposed to be fun and hooray. I'm like, but we can have fun after we do it right. And that was the perfectionist in me. And there were people that I did not want to play, even though they were very talented. They were more talented than I was. But they didn't focus as much on getting it right as they just wanted to focus on like having a good time. And I'm like, I guess at church, that's probably the thing that you should be focusing on. The
right
fellowship of the whole thing. I'm like, I just want to play it and I want to play it correctly. And so I get that. And especially something that you are creating or that you're trying to emulate that you really enjoy.
I think that's another part of it too, is like I personally have zero interest in playing anyone else's music. I have played other people's music. But it's just like not a thing. I've never been interested in cover songs. And so that leaves me to only playing stuff that I've written with other people or by myself. And that even like narrows the wanting to give control or relying on other people's creativity. That narrows that even more. And this is not a good thing. I'm not trying to like justify the way that I feel about music stuff, but I have realized over the past several years that I'm super hesitant to play music with people out of my own I want it to be like I want it to be. Maybe that's like the super childish way to think about music, but that's just like my reaction to, I don't know. It's so weird because some of the bands I've been in have been wonderful collaborations, things that I definitely could not have done by myself. But then other ones were like, I was most of it. You know what I mean? I wrote it. I wrote the lyrics. I told the guys how it was to be played, and they were like, yeah, sure, sounds good. They were just happy to be playing, which was great. So I've been in both of those situations. Whoops. I don't know.
Well, going back to kind of your sentiment about the guitar making you not as confident because it's not natively your beginning instrument, and it kind of added to that decision maybe not to play music with other people. I played the bass, and I played the bass because my brother played the guitar, and I played the bass by sound. I took piano lessons when I was a kid, and I was really impatient, and I wanted to play more than the little tap-tap little kid songs. I didn't want to put in the grunt work, and so I was really bored with it. And so when I played the bass, like I could play whatever I wanted to play, and I could pick up, what was it, like not Guitar Hero, music, like the magazine Guitar or something. Had all the tabs in it.
Yeah.
So I was like, I can play all the songs I want to play. Give me a foundation. Maybe I can understand notes, and then I can start to play what I wanted to play after that. And it seemed like a much faster way to get to where I wanted to go. But it didn't talk about music theory. It didn't talk about why certain notes were after another and why certain ones sounded great next to each other and why certain ones sounded terrible. It didn't leave you a lot of room for improvisation. Because a lot of improvisation in music isn't really improvisation. It's just you're following a chord progression and you're just doing it in a nicer sounding way.
Improvisation is knowing the rules of music and either following them or breaking them. Like that's what it is. Intentionally breaking the rules is often that's how jazz works, you know?
Yeah, and when you talked about an online resource for bass players, there's a YouTuber that runs a channel called Scott's Bass Lessons, and he has an online kind of school that walks through a lot of theory. Talks about the root, third, fifth chord progression and where that is on the bass and why it sounds that way. And then how to play the bass in a band because it's a support instrument. Like you are there to outline a chord.
Right.
You're not there to drive stuff. And it was like, this like sounds neat. He's like, but it can get really overwhelming and pretty annoying, and that's not your place.
Right.
And so to add highlights in a bass, but like you're saying, do it within the confines of music theory. And that was really telling because before I wanted to be, there's a bass player called Les Claypool who's the lead singer and the front man for the band Primus, and he's the bass is the lead in that band. So I'm like, I want to do that. I want to slap. I want to do all this awesome stuff. And then when I played in a band, my high school band, I tried to do more. I tried to be louder than everybody else because I just thought the bass was such an awesome sound. And when I started playing music in church, I quickly learned, like, what I now know is like, no, you're there to help with the rhythm and to outline chords. That's it.
Yeah.
Stop with all the extra stuff that you're trying to do. Go stand there in the back. And so it was kind of wavering. And I'm like, well, I really like what I'm doing. I like the feeling that you can like feel a sound that I get from a bass rather than a guitar. But it's taken me, I mean, when I led music, and I was talking about earlier, I played the acoustic guitar, and then I started playing the bass much later. And I was surrounded by amazing musicians, people that knew how to play together, people that were in orchestras. And I'm like, oh my God, they're going to see right through me, that I don't know what I'm doing. I had to have the music. And I would look on the music and I would write out everything I would need to know. If I wanted to get splashy, I'd write a little spot in there. You can get splashy right here, but go up to this one. All the things that you would learn in music theory and you would understand within the confines of how to put a piece of music together. I would just like do it like this and it sounds nice. And anybody else would go, well, yeah, that's what you were supposed to do, not just because you just figured this out. Like,
yeah,
it's not some revelation that you just stumbled across. That's day one of how to play guitar or how to play bass.
Right.
So and a part of me, everywhere that we would go, was like, I want to play. I love playing music. I'm like, but I'm not good enough to play with those people. Those people know what they're doing. I'm faking it. But the minute that I can play the song, I play the song and everybody's happy. And I'm like, hey, I did that song right. And I added the splashy parts within the confines of music theory. Hooray for me. I'm like, but I'm still not good enough to play in this band. And then I would be, again, I played in church band. So like every other Sunday or every Sunday I would play and it would sound great. And I'm like, yeah, that was super fun. I had such a good time, but I'm not a real musician. You guys are real musicians. And it's that weird imposter syndrome that you have. I think with any skill or hobby that you're trying to master, and you go into a group blind, and obviously it's like, oh, that person is the graduate level master welder or potter or whatever. And then you just try to build up those skills and you still don't feel like you're good enough. And I'm facing that now. And I faced that when we moved here because I wanted to play music at church. I'm like, man, these guys know what's up. They've got lights and they've got all this stuff. And it's like, it's a show. And I've played at that level. But I've worked up to that level, I'll say. And this church was like, okay, well, we'll have auditions. I was like, oh my God, I've never auditioned before. This is going to be terrible. And she's like, well, we'll send you the song. And then like a couple weeks later, you come in and just play with everybody. And I'm like, oh, I've played this song before. I've played this song in this key before. I know where I can get splashy in this song because I've done it before. I'm like, oh, well, this should be okay. I'm like, man, I'm so scared. And I talk to people that are in the band right now. They're like, why are you freaking out about this? I'm like, I don't know. They're like, you know the song? I'm like, yeah, I do. They're like, well, then calm down and just play the song.
Yeah.
But it's that same thing. Like, I feel like there's some spotlight that's going to be put on me and everybody's going to see through the fact that I am not as good as they are. But I have no idea how good they are either.
Right.
And so I'm going on the assumption that I am automatically the weak link. Because I'm nervous.
Right.
It's not that I'm not capable. It's not that I don't enjoy what I'm doing. It's not that I'm being forced to do it. It's the unknown.
Yeah.
And especially when you're literally put on stage to perform in front of other people, that's pretty nerve-wracking.
Right. But I mean, it's the same kind of thing where you haven't played with those people, and that's a big part of it. But as soon as you do play with them, that unknown step, that one thing is gone. Then you've played with them after you do it. And so that like, well, I'm just the odd man out. Now I'm the new guy, which is a different thing. It's a different stress, but then that goes away and now you're just part of the band. And now, so figuring out individual songs and how to play certain songs with certain people is kind of down the road from just playing with those people the first time. And so like that will be out of the way as soon as you do the audition. Yeah, I mean, I totally know what you mean because I mean I was in that position yesterday or the day before.
And coming here and
just
like
I don't know what to do, and Rob's really good at everything. And
he was super patient, and honestly,
he was amazing.
And I'm gonna say this to you that I imagine people have said to me before, is that you did great.
Oh, thanks.
And as bad or as out of tune, I heard you kind of mention those things like. Everybody is their own worst critic, and you're going to point out all the little faults in what you do, and especially musicians because it has that like little that was it dissonance that
Yeah.
like you can tell when something's a little off.
Yeah.
But you did a really good job. And if there are little things to critique, it's not much. And if you are put on the spot in front of a person who is extremely crazy talented and able to improvise the way that he did, like that's very difficult to step up to any plate. Like to be put in that situation. It's like if you went up to Picasso and you're just like, hey man, I got some paint that I found. You're like, yeah, let's paint together. You're like, what are we going to paint? Like, I don't know. We're just going to paint. And then he looks at you and goes, hey man, paint that side. And you're like, okay. Like it's a heavy task that you had. And I think you did great.
Well, thanks. It was kind of interesting. Like, last week we talked about the other musician that I had the conversation with, and there was the same kind of feeling, but it was a totally different situation. But the same kind of feeling of like, holy snot! Like, who am I talking to? This person is incredibly talented, and even though I have a history in music, oh man, I'm like nowhere near. Not. I mean, I don't have the chance of playing with this person, but it was just like it was a weird divide that I hadn't felt in a long time between like my skill in a thing versus the person that I was talking to and their skill in that kind of same thing. And so that was weird to be on the phone, and then to be in the studio was just kind of reiterating that a little bit. But I think to your original question, I think it did affect me in making me want to get comfortable again. Making me want to, not that I expect to be in that situation of being stuck in a recording studio and have to do something very often, but like, I would like to be comfortable enough to know that I could, I could be there and enjoy it and not feel nervous about it and not feel like I have to figure out how to perform. So I don't know. It was good. It was a really fun time, and I think I probably will start playing a little more music here and there. Nothing serious, but piddling around.
Well, I got tired of having that feeling.
Yeah.
So I talked to the girl who leads the band. They have like 2 different bands that play at the same time at different parts of the church. But I'm like, I want to play. I have the ability. I have the desire. I want to play in your band now, please.
Yeah.
She was like, great, we need bass players. I'm like, well, that's good, because that's what I do. And part of me, it was always an excuse. I had my bass, and when we went in, I've had 3. At one point, I've had a collection of 3 different basses at any given moment. And then I've sold some, given some away. And then the last one I had, when we went into the RV, I gave it away to somebody. And so when we moved here, I'm like, oh, I want to play music again. That would be fun, because now I can have an amp, because the RV, everything had to save weight. And so with a bass, you have to have an amp, because it's pretty much almost silent if you're not. And I'm like, well, I don't even have a bass anymore. And that was the impetus behind making my own bass. Mm-hmm. I'm like, well, now there's nothing else for you to fall back on. There's no reason why you can't do this. Yeah. It's just you're scared, and you have to admit that you're scared and that you're nervous and that you feel like you're an imposter. But then she gave me the music, and I'm like, I can play this. There's no reason I can't. And at our old church in Georgia, they used to play some originals. And that was really fun, because a lot of church music, a lot of like popular Christian music, like I don't know the names of these songs. I didn't, like you guys were talking at lunch one day, like I didn't grow up listening to Christian music as a teenager. I grew up listening to very secular rock music, and we played covers, and we had a couple original songs that weren't that great, but I just liked playing something and like investing that emotion that I would normally be very reserved about. Like I could just kind of let it out when I played music. And I feel that at church, like I want to be able to convey that emotion that I normally don't have. I'm not sticking my hands in the air, kind of like hooting and hollering, but like that's where I connect with my faith. That was the door
Absolutely.
that allowed me to connect with my faith, was through music.
I am 100% with you on that. 100%.
And there's always that part every time we go somewhere. We talk about, like, there's a term called church shopping, like when you go to a new town, which is totally bad. When you go there, you're like, I like this place, I don't like this place. And it's listening to the pastor, but then I'm like, all right, I want to hear the band, because that's where I feel like I can serve in a church. Mm-hmm. And everywhere we've went, I'm like, I want to play in this band. I want to help. I want to do my part that I feel like I can do. And so stop making excuses and just do it.
Yeah.
And like coming here, like you have instruments. I'm looking at all of the instruments right now. And I remember that like the day that I first started working, I'm like, yes, I can play music again. And I'm like, hey, Bob, we should play some music. And then we quickly divert the subject. And for all the reasons that you're talking about right now. And I'm like, well, maybe Bob was in a band and he's got a CD over there, the record that they made. And I'm like, maybe I'm just not good enough to play over here. And I'm like, I don't know. I'm probably not. He's got a Rhodes and he's got an actual Les Paul. I'm like, I have access to a Les Paul. It's like, it's not this unattainable thing. It's music. It's art.
Yeah.
It can be whatever you want it to be. And then it was like all of those things kind of mixed together. And then at one point going, this is stupid. If you want to play music, then just go play. And so I have an audition, I don't know, a week or two away.
Yeah.
I don't actually remember when. I should probably look. It'd be bad.
Oh, yeah, it was 2 weeks ago. Huh?
Bad if I missed it.
Yeah, that's cool. I mean, and just because I don't necessarily want to play music over here doesn't mean that the instruments can't be played, you know. I think one thing that while you were talking, I realized is that the time that I used to, well, there was a big part of my life where I played tons of music. We didn't have any kids, and so we practiced one night a week. We played shows most weekends. You know, it was like that was a big part of my free time. And then when we had kids, I still wanted to play music. Didn't have the band anymore. People moved away and stuff. And so my free time in the night, in the evening, became music. And I would, we would get the baby in bed and I would go down and play music and record it and put it on YouTube and stuff. And so that was, when I did that, was extra time. Then when I Like to Make Stuff started as a hobby, it pretty much replaced that extra time in my life, which was music. Music got pushed aside and got replaced with making projects. And then over many years, that became bigger and bigger, and then it ended up replacing my job, but then required so much that the free time aspect of my life, the nights, never got replaced with music. See what I mean?
Mm-hmm.
Like it got pushed out of the cycle because there were more kids and there's more family obligation and stuff like that. So, but it just dawned on me that that's where that fit at one point. And so there hasn't been an open slot for it to fit in again since then. And I'm not really sure how I would make that happen at this point in my life, but that's why it kind of got pushed out. And then it goes to that whole thing where I don't really want to do it unless I'm comfortable doing it, but I can't get comfortable unless I do it. A weird cycle of, you know, whatever. I mean, because I would love to, I really enjoyed making, this sounds so dumb now that I say it out loud, but I really enjoyed making music 100% by myself. Doing all the parts, writing the thing, figuring out how to play drums to something, because I'm not a drummer, but being able to passively do it, just to fill in the thing. That was a lot of fun. And I loved like doing that for YouTube. It was just layering stuff. And because I think when it comes down to it, I would enjoy being a producer, being a person in a studio that helped everybody get the best out of their performance and get the sounds and be able to take somebody's music and like, oh no, there's crying.
Ooh, somebody's mad.
Yeah. Anyway. Yeah, I think I would be a good producer because I like taking other people's performances and their songwriting and adding to it and like filling in and fleshing out a lot of the stuff about songs. And so I think that's why I like writing and recording by myself, is because it's that process of starting with something really basic and then just layering and, filling out and building from like a single line. You build out this thing. But anyway.
The hardest part I had being in a band was, I remember like the songwriting process. I wasn't really a part of the songwriting, like lyrical process, because I I don't know. I was always very self-conscious, and it's a very you're open to a lot of criticism.
Yeah.
Like not even just like performing, but especially if you were writing lyrics or if you're writing music, like that's a reflection of kind of who you are on the inside. And it's a lot of like tortured souls have a lot to pour out, and it's a lot to take sometimes, and you're being very vulnerable. And I never wanted to be that vulnerable. So if I've written songs, but they're in like a slip of paper folded in half in like that little box that a lot of people keep, like that they keep all their little secret things in. I have a couple of those, and I have no desire to let those out because I don't know, that's extremely vulnerable more than anything. But I remember when I was in a band, the guy who wrote the songs, I would kind of giggle because he would write these like really brooding songs, and it would come from like an honest place. And I'm like, shut up, your life's not that bad. And I remember thinking, now that I'm an adult, like, that was terrible. Like, I just messed up that person's outlet. And even though I was kind of half joking with my friend, like, and the way I reacted to him was what I imagined everybody would react to me. So I bullied somebody musically, and I feel bad now.
That's interesting. Well, other than playing at church, do you have any other aspirations or interest in doing more than that musically, or do you think that'll scratch the itch?
No, I mean, I want to play as much as I possibly can. I love playing music. My wife has played the saxophone since middle school. She was first chair all throughout high school. She and my son are now taking piano lessons because I guess she's always wanted to play piano. So in the same thing, she is learning, and then she's kind of teaching me the reverse of what you had. So she would learn scales and she would learn music theory on the saxophone, and I kind of learned it after the fact, like as an adult on the bass. And then going like the root third fifth of a chord, I'm like, that's just right there on a piano. Like, bing, like you're just, wow. I'm like, that's so much easier. You could just keep skipping your hand on up. Like if you were to make the claw hand like with your hand and you're just hitting it the entire time. She's like, oh, well, this is a major 7. You don't hit the 5th, you hit the 7th. And I'm like, that's what that means.
Yeah.
I'm like, whoa, you just stretch your pinky out a little farther. Yeah. I'm like, if I'm doing that on the guitar, it's a completely different like hand origami.
Right.
And that to me was just like memorization and less of the theory of where to put your, like, it's this note plus this note plus this note plus that one. And on the piano, it made way more sense because like you're saying, it's linear. And you just it's a gigantic scale.
Yeah.
I was like, whoa, it connected a dot I had no idea that was connectable. And by all, like, reality, it's music. It's all the same thing.
Right. But I think, and that's why I said that at the beginning, that I think piano is the way to teach somebody music. It's not the only way, but I think it is a way that most people can look at and totally understand music theory from the perspective of a keyboard easier than they can any other instrument, because it is a repeating linear scale. You take anything that has hand position, any horn or any woodwind or guitar, and there's this weird physicality that you have to overcome that seems really disjointed from the theory, but the piano is straight 1 for 1, first, third, fifth. It's because they are 1, 3, and 5 notes apart on the keyboard.
And when I saw that played out, like, I don't know how I didn't understand the root third fifth of something. Like,
because you couldn't see it. I mean, that's why it's difficult for if you don't see it.
And
on
I'm like,
piano.
it's that simple. It's just the first and then the third and then the fifth. I'm like, well, it's not just a clever name, I suppose.
Yeah. But I think back to why I feel like a poser on guitar is because I've not been able to translate that stuff to a guitar in the same way.
Well, I think on a bass, it's a touch easier because, I mean, depending on the tempo of the song, you don't play them all at the same time. Like, there are very, very seldom occasions that I ever played a chord on the bass.
Right, yeah.
And so when I say that you're outlining a chord, like the root, the third to fifth, or the seventh, or the whatever, you're trying to like monkey paw your hand in a way to play all those at one moment, and then like boom, change to the next and change to the next. So you're doing this like hand tai chi kind of stuff, depending on the tempo of your song. It's very awkward. It hurts your hands, it hurts your fingers. But on the bass, you have the entire measure to figure all those out. And so you're not doing them all at the same time. And I could say confidently that it's easier on a bass because you're not playing every single note.
Right.
But even on the guitar, it was really fun to memorize those. And in my mind, it made no sense. It was like chemistry to me. There we go. It was like chemistry. chemistry obeys laws if you know them all. And to me, it was like, well, what's chloride? Chloride is that. I was like, well, why? I'm like, I don't know. It's just that.
Yeah.
It's rote memorization. What's an A minor? A minor's this. Well, why? Well, because I put my 2 fingers like this and then my 1 finger over there. That's why. And it was fun to memorize all of those. But to understand, like we were talking about, the theory behind it, I could just memorize it and it'd be fine.
Yeah, but I mean, the theory stuff really does make a difference, and I think the longevity of somebody playing music, because you don't have the struggle of, I'm going to fiddle around until I hear something that sounds good, which is totally a legitimate way to write music, and, I'm not this
harder.
and that. But yeah, it's exhausting.
Yeah.
And so when you have an understanding of music theory, it cuts down on that fumbling.
Yep.
And lets you just practice a known format, and then as you practice that known format, you start to hear things pop out that work together because they should work together. And then, like I said, jazz is often breaking those rules intentionally and trying to work around music theory, kind of.
Well, on the bass, jazz is awesome because I always wanted to know how to play it. It was called a walking bass line. Mm-hmm. And I've always been really interested in doing it. I thought it was just a bunch of random notes that were strung together that sounded good. And when I took that guy Scott's bass lesson, when I took his walking bass line course, I'm like, it's just the root third fifth, like played in a different tempo. And then like maybe a harmonic to skip to the next one. I'm like, that's all you're doing. I'm like, why in my head, not in understanding music theory, I thought things were so much more difficult. I thought that I was just randomly throwing darts at something and it just sounded good. So I eventually maybe got a bullseye. But if you know chord progression and you know the basics of music, like you're talking about, like a walking bass line is just hitting every note in a chord and then you just keep going. Mm-hmm. And then maybe a transition in between the two. And it made that so much better and so much more fun. And then you can look at a sheet music instead of going, I have to memorize this entire song so I don't mess it up. I go, oh, well, that's a G. And it goes C, G, C, G, D, whatever. And then into the bridge. But it's you need far less information.
Oh, yeah.
Than you would if you're just trying to make it up as you go along.
Yeah.
Because when I would play a song in a church, like I would eyeballs, non-blinking, looking at the music to make sure that I don't miss a single thing.
Yeah.
When someone's like, oh, it's in a key of G, I'm like, I don't know what that means, but I'm just going to play. Or, oh, we're going to need to transpose up because this song is in it's not in the range of this one singer. I'm like, I don't know how to do that. They're like, we're going to go up 2 octaves. I'm like, I don't know what that means. And then I kind of learned, I'm like, okay, hold on. Now this is a math problem and I need a minute to figure it all out. And then I became a weak link in my head and kind of physically, like you guys have to wait on me to figure this out.
Processing.
Yeah.
Yeah.
But I wish, I mean, I probably wouldn't have listened to my older self anyway, but if I could go back in time to tell my younger self to slow down and calm down with music theory, it would benefit a whole lot of stuff later on.
Oh, yeah. But it's super hard to get any kid to believe that. If you're, even when I was learning piano, it's like I didn't understand what I was learning at the time about music theory, because it's like I want to play songs.
Yep, I want to rock out.
Music
please.
theory is not songs, So I mean, it's difficult to try to get any kid or young person or rock, person who wants to play rock music or whatever to invest in that thing that doesn't seem tangible at the time. Yeah, but at the same time, you can totally learn it after the fact, after you've been playing music for years. It's not like. It helps as a foundation, but it's not required as a foundation, and it can totally come in later on and enhance how you already play.
Absolutely. Yeah. And I think in that moment kind of makes you, it made me, I'm not going to project, it made me feel dumb. So it was there the whole time.
Oh, yeah.
I just didn't know how to look at it.
Right.
And I wasted so much effort, like you talked about, like making a song, but not knowing you waste a lot of effort. Like I've wasted so much time. And that, like, I'm not good enough feeling was rooted in you don't really know what you're doing. Mm-hmm. So you have to do every single teeny tiny little step and memorize every single teeny tiny little piece to where if you knew that basis, then it would make the whole rest of that experience so much easier and give you the confidence to go like, okay, if they do change something, or if I have a piece of music, I go, yeah, I can figure this out.
Right.
It's not as hard as I'm making it in my head.
Yeah. Yeah. I think
Then you'd be more apt to actually go and do.
right. And the creativity is not then blocked by mechanics,
Yep.
which is what happens a lot of times. And that's what happens with me on guitar. So I'm going to start learning guitar again. Still been doing Italian, which is kind of along the same lines. I took some French in high school, and I learned, enough to do the classes and stuff, and I did fine. But like, I didn't have any reason to learn it. But then after that, it was always like, well, I can't say that I know French because I only knew what was required.
You knew French like an American high school student knows any foreign language?
But then it was like, I wonder if I could actually get myself at this point in my life to learn another language. And then going to Italy last year was a good reason to start that. And then I didn't expect to go back to Italy, but I was like, I'm going to keep learning this just to keep my brain like trying to figure something else out. And then because I've been learning it this year, I was like, we need to go back to Italy. Mm-hmm. Like, not that I'm confident enough to use it probably still, but man, adverbs. Adverbs are confusing in other languages. It's like, learning how to say chicken and kitchen and mouse. Got it.
Yep.
Really? However, sometimes? Oh, goodness. That stuff is difficult.
See, a lot of foreign language for me was the same thing. Like, I went through 5 years of French, started in middle school and eventually ended up through high school. And knowing like these are IR verbs and RE verbs and a lot of things follow like a logical conjugation kind of method.
Yeah.
And then at a certain point, you're like, it's just memorizing words.
Yeah.
That's a cucumber. That's a building. That's a whatever. And I tried to find the logic through it. Even like getting out of my native English speaking, I'm like, if I was French, how would this word make sense? And like with adjectives or things end in ing, there's a kind of logic to it. But it went back to just like, no, you have to memorize that.
Yeah.
And
especially the special cases where they're like, you can come up with some sort of logical translation thing, which I've done a lot with Italian, but then there's certain things that are just, English is the worst of them all.
Oh yeah, English is
but there are certain
with
things that are just totally break the mold, and you just have to default to memorizing them. So
and even not even the word. You have to memorize the gender of the word.
Yeah.
Which I remember thinking like, man, that's just unnecessarily difficult for you.
Yeah.
Like it's a shirt. No, a man's shirt is feminine, but a lady's shirt is masculine. And so it's, at a certain point, it was like, well, the misogyny is like, well, if this is dealing with the house or dealing with being pretty, it's feminine. And if it's dealing with like work or something toilsome, like this is masculine. But then it started to break that.
Yeah.
And then when I lived in Belgium, I remember like, I'm not even going to try unless it was something that I absolutely remembered, or if it like began with a vowel, like I'm not even going to try to guess at the gender of vowels or vowels of nouns. Mm. And people were extremely nice about it.
Yeah.
Just because you're putting in the effort. And I want to know how important it is for them, to be honest with you. Because like when the iPhone was invented, was there some national thing that were like, this is now feminine?
Like, yeah, I wonder how that is applied, or if it defaults to one or the other now for new, words that come in from other languages. Because there's tons of English words that have just carried over into other languages. Mm-hmm. iPhone, internet,
cookies.
Stuff like that. Yeah,
which is fun because in French they don't have like cookies, and so when they accepted that from American culture,
the internet cookies, you mean?
No, like actual cookies.
Oh,
like you chocolate chip and peanut, like they didn't really have that as a thing. So when it was adopted, they say cookies with an S, even though you're getting one.
Oh.
So they pronounce it as a plural, or we would say as a plural, even though they don't, because it's an American word.
That's funny.
And it's one of those goofy things. And I fully admit that English, with everything else, is probably, I would admit, the hardest of all languages, even though we speak it natively. But understanding trying to tie it all back to music, like understanding the basis and the rules for things, even though you can't get the very tiny minutia, or is this a masculine? Is Lego masculine or feminine? I don't know. It's supposed to be a brick for all genders. Like, I don't know what to do. But understanding how to put a sentence together in another language,
yeah,
it's adjectives going before or after, beauty, age, goodness, size, that kind of thing. Like if your sentence structure, or if you're able to convey 80 to 90% effectively,
right,
that last little bit is not that big a deal.
Yeah. I mean, when I was first starting Italian, I was thinking about when I was trying to speak it in Italy, or wanting to, didn't actually try very much. But I had this, I'm going to look like an idiot, and they're going to think I'm stupid, and it's dumb American, can't learn the basics of a sentence. But then I think about, people from everywhere else in the world that come to America and or any English-speaking place, and try to speak English. There's a lot of brokenness to their sentence structure. You get the nouns and the verbs, and I never think twice about, I can't believe that Polish person is such an idiot.
Yep.
Or that Russian person should have known how to... No, they're, doing their best, and if it gets across and I can help them, I don't think badly about them because they're trying to learn another language. So why would Italians think that about me?
That empathy extends far past what Americans believe. That French people are rude. I used to hate hearing that from a bunch of Americans that would come over to visit, or people that were new to the country. I'm like, put yourself in their shoes. You live in, say, Alabama or rural Kentucky, and if someone just comes up to you, machine gunning Italian at you, and you're like, whoa, hold on. I don't know what you're saying to me right now. Right. And then they get mad at you because you don't understand what they're saying. Right. And then they, you're like, I don't know what just happened.
Right.
I'm like, that's what you're doing. And you're speaking louder. And you're getting upset that because you have this ethnocentrism that everybody should speak English or everybody should understand American culture, that when they don't, that native person is wrong.
Right. And
it always bugged me when people had this negative perception of people in France, particularly because, in popular culture, it's a stereotype that people in Paris or French people are just they're rude or they're whatever. That is not the case or my experience at all. It's if you try... I think any reasonable person would have empathy for someone who is attempting.
Yeah, yeah.
There was a little not even a convenience store, this little general store down the street from my house. And I used to go there, and the lady that worked there would know that I just would walk around, and I would, qu'est-ce que c'est? We're like, what is this? And she would tell me. I'm like, okay, I got to commit that to memory.
Right.
What is this? And I knew what it is, but I didn't know how to say it. And eventually... she would walk in and she would have things for me, on a counter.
Today's your lesson.
Yeah, and I would buy something from her because I didn't know what certain things were. They would have things in a deli counter that I, as an American, had never seen before. So I would buy something, and then she would have a little grammar lesson.
That's awesome.
And then she had a map on the wall, and she would ask me stuff in English, and I would ask her stuff in French. And so it was this little reciprocal
That's cool.
language lesson. But just that. Walking into a store, if you're a shopkeeper, I imagine you're pretty excited when people want to walk into your store and buy something.
Yeah.
Unless you're in some place where you've had a lot of bad experiences, people walking into your business is usually a good thing.
Right.
And so starting off with an empathetic or a helping or kind kind of nature is just a really good human trait.
Yeah.
But when you're going into a foreign language, going you're not, unless... you're just so wrong where you're openly insulting them, which I think
that's part of it. Yeah,
would be hilarious. Because imagine that Italian person walking in and was like, "Hello, may I have some of your butt toilet paper dishwasher?" And you're like, "Holy crap, that was hilarious!" And then they're like, "Oh my god, I feel so bad," and then they want to leave. That's not the case. You're like, "Okay, that was great. It was 100% wrong."
Yeah.
And that happened to me my very first day in Belgium. I think we talked about it with the lady with the Twilight books.
Oh yeah.
That happened the very first day. I think I can only go up from here.
Yeah. Yeah. I realize now that I shouldn't have been as worried about offending. And honestly, I think I was less worried about offending in Italy from the incorrect words as more as the pronunciation. Did we already talk about this?
I don't know. Keep talking.
I felt like, and this may offend somebody, and I apologize, Italian people, if I offend you here. I felt like Americans had this, and we do, have a very bad, overblown stereotype of pronunciation of Italian words. Of the the hands, and then
that's a very cartoony
right
depiction
it's
of people in foreign lands.
Stereotype of how Italian is spoken. It's very up and down and up and down. There's lots of hand movements and and stuff like that. And so I was afraid that this thing that we Americans see in Italian language that I was going to carry that over. And so when I was trying to learn certain words, I was like muting their pronunciation, trying to flatten it so that I didn't overcorrect and just come off as like somebody who's making fun of them in their own language.
Right.
And so I got over there, and it was really like, I don't know how to pronounce these things without having that like, that up and that rhythm and that up and down thing. And then I'm listening to him talk, and I'm like, it's not really a stereotype. That's like how the language works. And it's like, I don't know. It really caught me off guard because I just went into it with one expectation and kind of decided ahead of time, like, well, I'm not really going to try this because I'm going to offend somebody. And then I'm listening to them all. I'm like, why didn't I learn it that way? Like, I should have just leaned into it and learned some of that stuff, you know, to make it, I don't know.
Emulating. I had a Belgian police officer one time that we were somewhere. Oh, our helicopter almost crashed. That was one time I almost died. Landed in this field, middle of nowhere, and the like police showed up because there's this helicopter in the middle of these people's town. And we got taken to this police station just to kind of hang out. I don't really know why. But I was at this police station, and I'm in this... This sounds really funny now. I was in this jail cell with me and my friends.
Just hanging out.
Yeah. And we were just like needed a place to hang out. The door wasn't locked. And so this policeman come around the corner, and they were like watching a TV show. And I'd never seen a TV show. So I spoke French, and at that time, my confidence was up pretty high. And I went out and just started speaking to this police officer. I hadn't said very many words to him because I was busy, like, worrying about the helicopter stuff. And so I just went out, and there was probably 4 or 5 police officers watching TV. And I just come out there and start speaking French to them. And they all turned around and looked at me weird. I'm like, oh my God, what did I do? And the guy in French was like, are you American? I'm like, yes. And I said yes in English, and they looked at me again. They're like, your pronunciation is really good. Like, you're doing this really well. And I'm like, oh, cool, thanks.
Huh.
But that was all from just reciprocating the actions and, like, the nonverbal cues of someone else. And I think that goes to music as well, like being able to play off of people, like the leader of the band.
Yeah.
Not knowing every single thing. And if you want to get creative, just kind of do what they're doing.
Yeah.
Even though I might know where this is going to lead. And so there's the inflection or the how reserved you are in certain words. You're like, you know, no. Like those were like these little sounds. I remember a lot of the French speakers in Belgium should go like a lot whenever they were just like, no kind of thing. They would make this sound. And so I would make that sound and it would trip people up. They're like, you're American.
It was like a localism.
And it was really easy to emulate because when you're ingrained in it, and I think that that method of just being so flooded by the culture.
Yeah.
That,
immersion.
Yeah, that's the word. Thank you. Yeah. And they would do a thing like, oh, it's not possible. It was this thing that like, it's something that you couldn't get. Obviously, it's the same word, but just the cultural, like, you need to calm down what you're doing. You want too fast. You need to relax. Is a very French and Belgian, like, just cultural staple. And so as an American, if you wanted stuff and you were trying to rush and you wanted to get it done, like, yeah, you're going to come tomorrow and we're going to get this finished and we're going to do this. And they're like, this is not possible. And so if you just went and you had a little mind shift change, they're like, I need to slow down. I need to not say as many words as I'm trying to. And just the way you kind of carry yourself can fool a lot of people. Even though you may know 50 to 30%, just emulate what you see. And from afar, and I think as Americans, because we have this very strange bias around the rest of the world needs to act like we act, if you just kind of let that go and go like, well, this is what they're doing. They're comfortable.
Yeah.
I want to be comfortable.
Yeah.
A plus B equals act like them.
Yeah.
And it used to carry over in how I spoke English to people. And I used to get made fun of because I would speak French. And in my little American unit, there were 12 of us and that I worked with. If a local spoke English, I would start to speak English like I was a Frenchman speaking English to them. And they would go, why do you do that? I'm like, why do I do what? And I would speak to them like I would normally would. Like, you're speaking like a weird English French to them. I'm like, I don't know what you're talking about. And then they come back, I'm like,
I do not understand.
And like somebody would come talking, I'm like, oh yes, that's very good, thank you very much. And it was way better than that stupid Borat impression I just did. But I would not hear myself do it because that, like, I'm trying to match a mannerism or match the way somebody does something was just so ingrained at that point. And I don't know if that's a military thing where it's like if everybody's doing it and you're doing it too, then no one's wrong. And so it may... If Madame Lanou in my 8th grade and 9th grade French class heard me speaking that way, I would not get high marks. But my landlord and the cop at the jail cell and the lady at the bakery and the plumber and whoever else, I fit in and I was complimented. So every app, every American way of doing something, like, that's great.
Yeah.
Go be immersed in a culture and see how they do it.
Yeah.
And it's
one thing that's really cool that I think will help with that, with the Italian stuff for me, is we're going to hang out with Jocko and his crew of guys that work with him. I think it's all the same that were there last year when I was there. So I've met them. Some of them speak English well, some not so well. But we're going to be with them and probably not with anybody else. And so, like, there's no chance of me offending them by doing something wrong. And so that's actually a pretty good test bed of just trying to speak it and messing up and, like, it totally being okay. And so, whereas last year, those same guys, I didn't know them. So I didn't have that, kind of easy out. But anyway, we're running kind of long. We should probably wrap it up. Anything else you want to go over?
I'm not going to ask you to play music anymore. And this is not being mean. Don't take it that way. I felt like maybe I was putting undue pressure in some way. And when I was watching you play the bass, the whole time I was thinking, I hope he's having fun. Because I know it's something that you love to do. It's a huge part of you, and you haven't done it in a while. And not that I'm trying to crack some code or try to, like, reach you on some philosophical level. Yeah. But I know it's something that you like to do. And if you want to do it in private, I thought maybe, like, offering, well, Anthony and I could play too. I thought maybe I was helping with that.
Oh, right.
But if that's not the case, which sounds like it's not, I won't do that anymore. And not as pouting, but as to not put pressure on you or try to coerce you into doing something that you wouldn't want to do in the way you don't want to do it.
Yeah. I think I will get back to playing eventually, but I think there's probably a long period of alone muscle memory buildup and comfort level with instruments and stuff that needs to happen before I would, like, even try to play recreationally with anybody. It's just
Anthony and I could play.
Yeah, you guys can play.
Or a rock out. We'll send all the noise the kids sound this way. We'll send it back upstairs.
Yeah, there you go. They would love that, and they would come down here and listen probably.
Your kids are doing a great job on the piano, by the way.
They are. I am super proud of the 3 of them that are taking lessons. And my oldest is learning baritone, and wow, man, they're all doing way better at all that than I did as a kid. They started later, but I think that probably has something to do with it. Anyway, we'll talk about that another time. Where can people find you?
On the internet, Josh_makes_stuff.
You can find us at I Like to Make Stuff on all the different stuff. Let us know what you think about our new table, because that's about the only thing that's different about it.
It'll be a project video. You can see it, and you can leave really nice comments in the comment section down below.
Yes. I like it a lot, and I think it works very well for this.
Anthony, you got the footage of this thing being made, how crazy it went, right? Mm-hmm. Oh, that was fun.
Yeah. Oh, yeah, the CNC. Yeah. Be sure to watch the video. It'll be fun.
Yeah.
All right. Thanks for listening, everybody. Join the Maker Alliance if you want to. If you don't, that's cool. We'll talk about it next time, and we'll see you then.
Okay, bye.
Bye.
Bye-bye, I meant.
Like a Muppet.